All right, guys, what's up? This is just another edition of our podcast. I got my man Barrett Green here,
What's happening?
and just stoked to have you, man. It's honestly personally been a fan a long time. So
I mean, that's likewise as well. I mean, obviously we'll get down the road or whatever.
yeah,
But just funny seeing all the cars that you guys have done, and I'm like, oh man, I saw Bad Penny out there. I'm like, I remember that was it for me when you guys did that one.
So, and I could say so. And Rick, you might need your mic quickly. One of my favorite memories of you. We were kind of doing the NMCA thing. Nothing against those guys, just a little bit more corporate, a little more put together. Mm-hmm. And Ricky had come to one event with us just to kind of see what was happening. And then we ended up going to No Mercy like a few weeks later.
Yeah.
And then there you were, star spangled out and your cut off jean shorts. And I feel like that's one of the things that really done it for Rick.
That's what reeled me in. I was like, if there's guys like that at the track, I want to be there.
See, what's funny is my wife's always worried about all these. She calls them thirsty girls, and I'm like, look, like there's some dudes got some bromance going on here,
I mean, I filmed you a lot that day without you knowing.
That's fine.
Yeah, you're one of the highlights of that
There's
video.
some B-roll out there.
There we go.
Yeah,
Slow-mo B-roll.
It was awesome.
I was probably a little. Was I jigglier back then? I mean,
I think that's when you kind of started your journey. So you're definitely a little more.
I was on the end of my journey then. I got fatter after that.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
You look good.
Gotcha.
That was pre-COVID.
No, that was post. That was like kind of in the
Yeah,
midst
we were
of-
being like, I guess that would have been.
It was 2021.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, so I was on the way up.
Okay, gotcha. On the way up.
Yeah, no, back on the way down.
But if you don't know Barrett, man, one of the other things that I really love about you, just a connoisseur of small tire drag racing. I see you everywhere, right? Like, if we're racing radial stuff, Barrett's there. If we're racing no prep stuff, Barrett's there.
Yeah.
If, I would say you're at a lot of big money grudge races too in your home state of Texas. So you just, no matter what it is in the drag racing venue, you're there and you love it. You're not prejudiced to any type of it. You just love drag racing.
I mean, as long as it's small tire, like big tire, it's just like, come on. Like, it'd be really cool if that had small tires on
It would look way better.
Yeah, look way sexier.
So just to kind of kick it off, why do you like drag racing? What got you into it? Like,
I mean, I guess I probably have like the most unorthodox way of drag racing. Like, there's so many opportunities for me to be involved, and I never really got involved until, I just started driving. Like, I remember my earliest, drag strip experience. I had a cousin who, I don't know, second, third, whatever, who now races in HRA Pro Stock. He raced junior dragsters, and they were like, oh, you can come to Thunder Valley and, race in Oklahoma. We'll let you race the junior. Well, I was too short to race the junior.
that's very surprising.
Yeah, I was a short, fat kid for a long time, and I remember being like, dude, I was so hyped to get it, and I just was like, I can't touch the pedals. It's just one of them things where like I was never into cars as a kid. My dad was never into cars. We were, poor-ish, I guess. Both my uncles were like all about cars. Like I have one that's a firefighter, and he would restore cars and all kinds of other stuff. And then another one, he was into cars as well. And that just wasn't my dad's thing. We weren't, well off enough to afford it, even the car that we had at the time, much less an extra one, And I just got into it, being a mechanic and stuff, and just kind of enjoying, the outlawiness of, street racing is really what got me into it. I was this weird kid that went out in, the middle of the night to not party or drink, but just to go watch street racing. And you had these larger than life characters of, like Ronnie Pace and Boosted GT and all these guys when they were just regular dudes, that enjoyed racing on the street.
Yeah, way before the show.
Yeah, I mean, now that's the cool thing to do is to go watch street racing. When I was there, like, I just happened to just show up on it one time, like, what's going on? And then, I'm like looking around and people like looking at me, and didn't help that the car that my parents had at the time was a Grand Marquis, so they probably thought I was a cop rolling in, and I just got hooked. And then it was going to the track, and then we started putting on events with me and my partner, Michael Hollis, and it's just sort of just kind of went from there. Like we talked, I used to take pictures. 660 photos was one of our old deals, way back in the infancy of the radial stuff, and just been hooked ever since. I just like being a part of something, and small tire race, just the outlawness of it's where it's at.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, and you could like I knew you before. We were kind of joking before this started about our weekend in Bowling Green, and you were there. And obviously I knew you before then, but needed a nitrous line, and you and Nitrous Express share a thing. It was kind of a chaotic thing. And then like a couple weeks later, we found ourselves at Armageddon, and that weekend you woke us up with breakfast sandwiches. Like you came to the camper, you brought us breakfast, and like I'm like, man, I could really hang out with Barrett a lot. So, and we got to kick it that weekend a lot. It was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of being, slimming down is working out. And also it kind of worked out that my motorhome, it's not, very pristine, but at the same time, at that time, it was a little janky. And so I told Tom, I said, hey, let's split a camper. And he was like, cool, bet. And we got like the most trapped out camper ever. Like it didn't have towels or nothing. So I told the kid, I was like, look, I got this, gym membership. We'll just go to the gym. I'll work out and then I'll wake you up. We can take a shower. Well, it's one of them things when you all are, stuck at the track 12 deep, you can't go out. And it's kind of one of those things. I don't really know what it is. I'm, kind of weird. Like, I get out of a car for a funeral procession and, those things. And I was always taught, like, hey, if you're going to eat and it's within your means, everybody's eating. So, $50 later, like, it's already a good weekend. I'm just going to get breakfast sandwiches for everybody.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's just how I am. It's how I was raised. And, I think, I don't know if we get that on camera or not, but the trophy, I guess if you want to call it.
That's a trophy?
Yeah, like sick. You don't ever come empty-handed. You guys done rolled out the red carpet for me. And
well, that's, I think, going forward in the podcast, so they should always have to bring us something, right?
Please bring us something.
Yeah,
to fill
that
out
offering. Yeah, like that.
Barrett has started it.
Yeah, Barrett started a tradition. So if you come on after Barrett, you got to bring something.
That's what's up.
New rule.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So what event? What was the first event you ever put on?
It was actually the first one I put on. It was the first one that I announced. It was a lot of firsts.
Okay.
Was a no prep at North Star Dragway. The time, did you guys ever get a chance to go out there or no? So it probably, right now, I would say Charlie Brown probably go like 110, 60 foot, and it's been closed for, I don't know, 4 years now. It's Gene, our homie Gene out there, like he took care of the track. He'd be going down Wednesday. It's on the side of 35. He'd be taking care of it, washing it, scraping it, whatever, in the middle of the week. Like it was
good track.
Oh, phenomenal. And it was a little short. There was first of the 380s and I think even first of 370s as far as radial stuff is concerned out there. And, for a 1.5, like the legal limit is 1.5 times shutdown for your racing service. And it was like 1 foot plus.
Oh, gotcha.
So, you can imagine, going 380s with, I think Stevie was driving, what's his name's the orange car? Stinton or is it Stinton?
I think it is Stinton.
Yeah, one of those guys.
Yeah.
Him and then Rob Valden was driving Aleppo's car, and they went side by side 380s, and I announced that. But that's also my ADHD is getting.
It's good.
Radio stuff's big, and Gene comes to my buddy Michael and's like, "Hey, this no prep stuff's kind of starting to take off. Y'all should put on a no prep here." And we're like, "Okay." And so we just sort of kind of talked about it and was like, let's do it. Let's have a small tire and a big tire and all this stuff. And a couple weeks before, we went to a friend who can't be named for legal purposes, but he got, a bachelor party and wasn't allowed to go to the strip club. And the first place we went was the strip club. And we walk in and the DJ is in there. He's like, all right, guys, who's ready to get their dicks sucked? And I was like, this is my kind of joint right here. So, shots later and everything, I start, joking around. We're driving and stuff, and we're, street racing people. And I'm like, top in charge, all that, just having a good time. Well, I get dared, 2 days before when we go to meet with the track. Hey, why don't you announce? So here I am, not knowing anything other than knowing the people. I don't know how to talk and all that stuff. So I'm announcing, and then me and Michael were putting on the race, and I mean, here we are probably 18 races later. Now we're doing, we're doing radial stuff. We're going to do a no prep next year, but we are without a doubt the last big radio race off the East Coast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Texas Radio Roundup. I mean, it's it's in our third year. This will be like the next one will be our fourth, and it's one of those things where we've learned. I've worked for Duck for a long time, and I've seen trophies and stuff like that. We talked, and we spend probably, I don't know, $300 or $400 a person, like per class. So that's times, it's $4,000 worth of trophies because the money's gone, the money's spent, and you have that race where we're in our infancy, but we're already doing stuff when you're 15 races in. Then you have these type of trophies and stuff like that, and just kind of one of those things where we just try.
Yeah, and that kind of brings it to the next thing. I mean, you've been a part of, I guess we could call it the Duck X family for a long time. Like you've had something to play with it, and then, obviously I would consider you the lead announcer.
I'm the chief, like everything, like it don't matter what it is. Last time I think at Lights Out, they were like, "Hey, we need some help in tech." Okay, like sign me up. Like I always, I want to be an asset for anything I'm a part of, not an expense. And I get to do a lot of announcing and stuff like that, and then it becomes transactional at a certain point, and I never wanted to get to that because that's not fun.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a freedom in doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
When you want to do it, not what you have to do. And so I always joke like, hey, if you need somebody in the concession stand, like give me a hairnet, I'll be good to go. And whether it's announcing or whatever, I enjoy it because I want to be a part of it.
That's cool, man. So you definitely have taken some stuff that you learned from watching them have a legacy of events and applied it to your own.
Yeah.
What was your first Duck X event? What?
Would have been a Lights Out. The first one that I worked at, or the first one I went to?
I mean, we can go, but what's the first one you went to?
The first one I went to was Lights Out 1.
Okay, so you were there from the ground up.
Me and the wife and Robert, who's playing on the computer now, but we loaded up. I didn't even have vacation time or anything. We just loaded up and drove my father-in-law's Nissan Xterra. Like got off work Tuesday. That's when you could get there on a Wednesday and be fine, not miss nothing. And drove all the way. It's 14, 15 hours. Drove all the way through. Didn't even have a hotel or nothing. Just
fans of the sport. Just getting there.
Well, I mean, obviously, like, what was it, 14, 15 years ago? Like, there wasn't YouTube. I mean, there was, but nobody was covering it like it was. So you had to get on Yellow Bullet. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this all about? Like, this dude's like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, bring that shit out here and let's go. And that was big money at the time. And I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And so we went out there, and I mean, it was a spectacle, Sort of made our way in, and I'd never met Duck or any of that stuff. I just messaged him online and was like, hey, we're coming to be, photographers, and we're going to do updates because that's, you didn't know there was no live feed.
Yeah, so just as the pictures came out.
Yeah, just the pictures. And so I said, hey, we're going to do that, and then we're going to take pictures, and we'll post them on Yellow Bullet every night. And he was like, cool, we'll have 2 passes waiting on you. And never said, hey, we need this, we need that. Just he said, yeah, we'll have them there. And sure enough, there was 660 photos, 2 passes.
That's awesome.
I was like, hell yeah. And I mean, I was hooked. Like watching David Wolf like knock the scoreboards over on 440s. Like, and now it's like, but then it was just, it's ridiculous.
So what was your favorite memory of that from that first event?
Man, my favorite memory was being in the stands. It was me, my buddy Michael, my buddy Brett, who, I fucked up now, but can't name him, but my buddy Brett.
We can add it.
No, I'm just joking. We'll leave that in there. But we're staying in the stands, first round eliminations RVW, and it is absolutely electric. Like we're in there, we're gambling. I'm pretty sure we were gambling with, I don't know, somebody from Pro Line or, whatever it was, but just it didn't matter what it was. The cars are knocking the tires off or there's come behind. Like we stood and watched that first round of RVW. I think it was a Friday night or maybe it was Friday night because they were done on Saturday. And I mean, you couldn't get anybody else in there. Like it was just absolutely like an unfuckwithable vibe.
That's cool. Almost chasing that vibe ever since. Really.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a couple of, highlights of, I guess my legacy or whatever you want to call it. But that's definitely one of those. Just to be a fan, I want the people that come to our shows, I want them to have that same feeling that I had as a fan. I'm a announcer, yes, but at the same time, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I get the best seat in the house. I get to watch it, and I get to see it, and I get to talk about it.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
explain it in a way that is for most people, like they can see a scoreboard and they're like, oh, that's cool. But I'm like, yeah, he's 120 on the back split. Like he was moving. You don't see that on the scoreboard.
Yeah, you don't have that perspective.
Yeah.
That's rad, man. That's really cool. So so then how many years later did you actually work there?
I would say it's probably lights out 10. I had I was a aircraft painter for Lockheed Martin for a long time, and I just decided that's not what I want to do anymore. I went, was working with these guys that had 30 and 40 years and were just absolutely miserable. They were miserable because they had given their lives to a company that, oh, hey, thanks for 30 years. Here's a little pin,
Yeah.
Or their kids hated them because they were always at work and they were never there at, soccer games or any of that other stuff. And I just was like, man, I want to do it. I want to do it full time, you know, and whether it's, at that time, Big Hat Mafia was in its infancy. And I was like, I was starting to do more and more announcing events. And I had one thing I wanted to chase, and that was I wanted to be a part of the radio deal. And there was a guy that kind of weaseled his way in there before me and kind of, shit the bed a little bit.
Yeah, that's saying it lightly. Yeah, we don't got to get into that, but
no, it's funny because we'd worked together too, but it's on other stuff in Texas, but it kind of pushed me back a couple of years. And I was, I'm not one to like call him beg, but I was at least like, let me kind of pressure it up a little bit. And I remember making a post on Facebook and was like, hey, does anybody have, Duck's phone number? I was like, because I had it and I, would text him or whatever, call him. I'd go to voicemail. I was like, because, every time I call it, I get the local Zephyr Hills rub and tug. And that's all it took was 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from him and he is like cackling, laughing. He was like, look, man, I know who you are. I know you're kind of a no prep guy or whatever. He's like, but just some shit like that. Like, I want you to be a part of this.
That's cool.
He's like, if you'll come out.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah. Well, he's like, if you'll come out and you'll be a part of it. He's like, I don't, I've got Lee and I think it was Lee and Loans that were doing it at the time. He's like, I've got these guys. I'm like, look, I don't want to take their job. I just want to be, part of it. Like I'll do index stuff, which I have no idea how to announce, but I'll do it,
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, come on. Like, it sucks to be stuck in this chair for 5 or 6 days. Like, I enjoy it, but at the end of the day, it sucks.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I've been kind of trying to find somebody to sort of work in. And he's like, let's do it. And I was like, cool. So pretty much like loaded up. And I was like, the only thing I ask is let me have pay me and then give me a merch booth spot. And he was like, well, okay. And I knew, all right, well, the fee will cover some expenses, but the money is in the merch booth. And we showed up and my wife ran the merch booth and I went out and I was an asset. I delivered packages that used to be delivered at the tower and I'm throwing them on the golf cart. And I was like, well, I can't, kiss Duck's ass, but I bet you if I'm, kiss Stephanie's ass, that'll go a long way.
Yeah. You knew the right moves to make.
And, people like, how can you work for Donald and all this? Like, that dude's an asshole. And I'm like, look, man, I've never had someone say, hey, if you'll come for this amount, we can do it. And then pay me double that at the end of an event. Yeah. Because he was like, look, man, like I was willing to give you that money, but I was going to see how you did it. And he's like, man, within the first day, I was already going to give you the money, but I wanted to see, how you were at the end of it. Like, I wanted to see if you were just jerking me off or you were about it. And he's like, you're about it.
That's awesome, man. What a cool story.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of one of those deals. Like, I want things to happen naturally.
Yeah.
And I think there's too many people out there that would either sell themselves short or, kill their mom, as I always say, like to just have the opportunity to do something and then they end up shitting the bed. And, it's one of those things.
Well, and really like to kind of speak to the Donald piece. I know that, Donald's can be really colorful and who he is and all those things. But, the couple of times that we were in the winter circle down there, I mean, he was always so nice to me, like really thankful that we were there. Like, yeah, cool. And like, actually, I think our first lights out that we raced was 10.
Okay.
So that was the first time we brought our 235 car out. First, I hit the wall. That was exciting. But yeah, that was all in lights out 10. So.
Yeah. And I remember kind of following you guys and stuff and like, oh, that's cool. And like you guys had just done the 235 car and everything else. And I was like, man, I get to see these guys. This is awesome. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Like, that's just how it goes. But, like you said, you've been a fan of me and, who was it that was doing like the missionary stuff? Was that you or was that another?
So, my Joran that he worked for us for a long time. He actually is in the States right now.
Oh yeah.
He's here for a month, but he moved to Australia, did all that stuff. But yeah,
I got you. And so like, I'm not like you always talk on your motivational Monday and stuff about, not forcing, religion on people. And I have my own, reasons or whatever, but I'm not really that big of a church guy, but I try to do the right thing. And I thought it was awesome, to think how like, it seems like it's an unpopular thing. Like, people are like, oh, thank God on their post and that's it. And I'm like, here, this dude, has a whole shop revolving around, just doing the right thing and just trying to be thankful for the opportunities that are given. And I was like, man, that is very cool to have such it's sad, but like an unpopular, choice. And you're just like, there these guys are like doing it, and obviously drag racing is not exactly the most PC, thing. And you really never know who you're going to meet. And you find some genuine people and then you find some people that, say one thing and they're another. And it's just interesting, all the people you get to meet and the opportunities that I've gotten to meet those people. I'm like, that makes it worth it sometimes.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Well, that's what keeps it going. If I talk to me for myself personally, like just all the different people we get to meet and interact with, like, it's so awesome. All the friends that we have created throughout the country. Like, I literally feel like we could drive anywhere and know somebody,
Oh, yeah.
If we're stuck on the side of the road, somebody's going to come get us.
That's definitely a racer in need. Like I'm usually the one that's sharing and calling and doing whatever, and I've been the racer in need before, and it's
well, you have a motorhome, and anybody with a motorhome is definitely a racer in need at some point.
I love my motorhome to death, but sometimes I'm just like I'm waiting, I'm just driving nervous, like.
It's such a common theme, dude. Yeah. Isn't it, Rick? That's just the same.
Like, what's going to happen? And it goes back to that, we joke, and it's, I guess, kind of the folly of a lot of small.
Whoa.
Wow.
You good?
Yeah, I'm all right. It was the coffee.
Okay. Was that out of your fancy K-cup machine?
Yeah, our fancy cake.
I thought there was actual, like, cups, like, little light. I'm like, oh, this thing's fancy. It's sort of the folly of a lot of small business owners. You get that must be nice mentality.
Yeah.
And, it is nice. It's nice to know that I'm leaving my house to drive 11 hours last weekend to, LS Fest on the first of 3 or 4 events, knowing that I have thousands of dollars in vendor fees that I have to recoup. I've already paid these fees. And if the motorhome, something happens, that's it. They ain't going to give me my money back.
They're not going to give it back to you.
And it's just like, you kind of want them like, it must be nice. I'm like, you know what? It is. It is nice. But at the same time, it's nice knowing that I'm going to do what I can do to, I guess if you want to speak on like a legacy type thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's me. Unfortunately, if something happens to me tomorrow, that's the end of Big Hat Mafia.
Yeah.
And like my buddy Darren with Monkey Shine, he passed away tragically, and that was the end of Monkey Shine. And I'm doing my best to try to work on bringing that back, but it's one of those things where I really know where I was going with that, but you got to kind of do your own thing and just try to get it going.
Well, and that's if you don't know, I was kind of waiting to get to. You can see the big hats here, which we all wear big hats around here. Yeah. So, but that's Barrett's deal, the Big Hat Mafia. Like if you're at the racetrack and you're getting burned up, you got to go see the man, and he'll get you a proper head.
Yeah, proper hat. Yeah. So I sold a lot of proper hats at LS Fest. There were some imposters out there.
They try to knock you off.
I wonder where y'all got the idea, but I was the only game in town for a long time, but it's all right.
But so that moment for you of you said you painted airplanes. Do you remember that moment of, not that you walked in and gave him the middle finger, but that you walked in and was like, this is going to be my last day, and you took that leap? What did that feel like?
Man, I remember when I thought I could do it was we were really slow, parts shortages and stuff. And, we got to the point where we were Monday through Thursday, and that was it. Like, at its slowest, I think we didn't do anything for 2 weeks straight at my job. And I was like, man, I'm, getting paid here or whatever, but then I'm going on the weekends. If it's local, I'm making, a couple grand selling merchandise and stuff. And this time I just had some shirts and some hats. I'm like, that's more than I made in 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I could do this. And I'm sure the statute of limitations are gone on this deal, but we had devised a plan where I would take a leave of absence from work, and the max you could get was 6 weeks. So No Prep Kings is kind of starting to take off here at this time in my life, and I go into my boss's office like, hey, I need to take a leave of absence. Now, keep in mind, I'm like the shop steward. There's only like 6 or 7 guys in my shop. Like, I pretty much got it made. And he's like, what? And I'm like, well, you see what happened is my son was getting bullied at school, and now we're doing online school, and he's failing. And like, he failed the first 6 weeks, and we got to get him back on track. Otherwise, he's going to take the grade over again. And boss was like, what? I'm like, oh man, I just came up with that on the top of my head.
Statute of limitations.
Yeah. So, and I put a lot of stuff off. Well, I knew that we was leaving, like this was Labor Day. So, 5 years ago, I knew we were leaving like that Monday. Like, we was heading out. We had already signed up to do it, and I still hadn't got it cleared from my job yet. Like, that was going to be an okay thing. And so I was like, well, shit, it's either going to work or it's not. Like, that's how I live my whole entire life. Like, it's either going to work or it's not. And they gave it to me, and we hit the road, and the very first event rained out. And I went, oh my God, what am I doing? And the second event, we went all the way to Illinois. It rained out. And then we went to Curtis's race. Well, it wasn't Curtis's race, but Curtis was there.
Yeah, the four of those guys.
Yeah. A race at Great Lakes. It was Anarchy No Prep. So I announced there. So I knew, hey, I'm going to get a little bit of money.
There's a guarantee here.
There's a guarantee here. It's a little tight. Luckily, my wife was still working remotely, so she's working 7 days a week, and I'm just, living the high life here. But
trophy husband.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's definitely the breadwinner in the corporate world. We finally get there, and we get to Anarchy and do good. And I'm like, this is what's up. Like,
yeah, there's hope here.
There's hope here. Drive all the way across the country. We have to go from, Great Lakes Dragway to Denver, to Bandimere. And
that's a haul.
That's a haul. And there's only one person driving. Because she ain't driving because she got to work. She got to, she's got to keep a roof over our heads. And granted, it has wheels and tires, but, we're motoring along, and we stop in Omaha for the night because that's halfway. And to go eat with, 1320 in them and get in the next morning, and it ain't starting. And I was like, oh my gosh. So here I am, super high. Hey, we made all this money to lowest of low. Like, the motorhome's dead in the water.
Yeah.
Takes all day, finally get it fixed, drive all night because we got to make it to.
You got to get to that money.
Get to Bandimere.
Yeah, get to that paycheck.
Yeah, we get there, we crush it at Bandimere. And we actually partnered with Monkey Shine. They split the vendor fee with us. And that was a good event for us. And I'm like, we can do this. We can make this happen. Like, we crushed adversity. We are small business owners. Meanwhile, I'm driving to, wholesalers and picking up, like, I'm working this whole, week. I'm like, this is some bullshit. I thought I didn't have to do nothing.
You got to collect checks.
Yeah. Then we go to Arizona, and I'm like, okay, now I got to find something to do. Like, this 6 weeks is almost up. I'm either going to keep going or I'm going to go back to work. Arizona's another banger. And I'm like, shit, I ain't going back.
You can't make me go back.
You're going to drag me back. I get a hold of my buddy, John Herring, has a roofing company. I said, hey, man, let me sell some roofs for you. And he was like, come on, player. Like, there's a hurricane about to hit. Like, as I'm texting him, the hurricane's out in the Atlantic about to just crush North Carolina. And he's like, it's going to be like a Cat 3 or Cat 4, and I'm like, cool. Here I'm excited. These people are about to get their shit blown away. And I realized I haven't told my wife any of this. We're driving. She's asleep. I buy a plane ticket, like a one-way plane ticket from DFW to, I was like, speaking of the devil, there's my wife. It's just some spam call. I buy a one-way plane ticket from DFW to North Carolina. I'm like, I'm going to do it. This is how it's going to happen. Walk in the next day, and I still haven't told my wife. Like, by the time we get there, I'm like, I should probably tell you I'm going to go sell roofs in North Carolina. She was like, what? She's like, what about Lockheed? I was like, oh, I'm going to go in tomorrow and quit. She was like, okay. Like, she didn't even know or anything. I had made up my mind. Like, we just, made all this cash. Not knowing, you need to buy more inventory and there's all this other stuff.
All the stuff that you figure out.
I'm just concentrating like, look at the amount of money we made.
We could fill this bed up.
Yeah, woo! I think we balled out at GameStop one time. Like, you want to switch? You want to switch? Cool, let's get. Pretty sure there's a picture on Facebook of my wife and getting hold up switches, and I'm like, I paid for that, but it's just. I'm going to live the moment. Like, let's do it. Let's make it happen because there's no alternative.
Yeah.
There's no room for failure if there is no room for failure, Probably could have, eased into it, but I wouldn't have been as hungry knowing that, my wife can telecommute or whatever before this is pre, work from home. And, we probably could have had a very comfortable living, just her working, but it would have been the end of us. Like, there's no way we could stay together and her work 24/7, and then have to be tied to this corporate deal and then, out here in Kentucky having a good time on a podcast,
Well, I think that's the common theme of like anybody that I know that's kind of an entrepreneur or even, you have to have that failure's no option, that hunger in your belly that like, whatever happens, we're going to make it through it. Like I told somebody the other day, I'm like, I actually kind of enjoy when stuff goes wrong because it pushes me or us or however you're looking at it to think through it and think a way that we never would have.
Yeah.
And I love hearing those, like, I don't know, it's like to a comic book thing. It's like the origin story of like what pushed you to do what you're doing, to jump off that cliff, to not know what was on the other side of it. It's exciting.
Well, we always tell the story or whatever, but like that was her dream. Her dream was to work for herself. And I totally just stole it from her and beat her the punch. So I quit in September, I done messed it up. I quit in September of, 2019 or whatever it was, 2018. And she made it till June of next year before she was able to quit and open up a clothing boutique with her mom. And then now she does that and then has a deli too. So it's one of those things where that's all we know.
Yeah.
Like we're sitting here and I'm, texting people like, hey, we need to do this head order. And I'm telling her like, hey, you need to send these out for me. And she's like, well, like, I don't have anything to do. And I'm like, well, yeah, but at the same time, like, you got to do it because it's in Dallas. I need you to take care of it.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, like, sorry about my time. I'm like, well, whenever you need anything fixed in them at the house, like, that's me too. And I'm sure, for a lot of people in those type of things where it's just all you have is time.
Well, and you got to have like to take over the world in your own little world.
Yeah.
You have to have a partner that's going to ride with you.
Yeah.
And like, I have that personally. You have that. Rick's chick is awesome, and the rest of the boys. But my chick, man, like she makes me at least think through stuff. Mm-hmm. But when I jump, she jumps with me, and it really makes me sad when I see other people that don't have that. Don't have like, and it's such a corny phrase, but really that ride or die person that's like, we're going to make it. We're going to figure this out. If that's what you want to do, let's do it.
Yeah. And I mean, the worst part is like I always say like I'm a piece of shit, right? And people are like, no, you're not. I'm like, look, there's people that are better husbands than I am, and there's people that are worse husbands than I am. There's people that are better business people, and I just try to be the best that I can, and it's never perfect, but, for COVID, they shut her, like, everything shut down, right? So for 6 weeks or so. Like she shut down, and her friend, who their dream was to open up together, one side of this business is her salon. Well, she can't cut hair. And the other side is the boutique. Well, she can't sell it because, you know, COVID's going to get everybody. The first day they were open, I'm out there for her slinging margaritas and, you know, all kinds of stuff and being the line monitor and everything, you know. And I'm like, look, like this is what we got to do. We got to get back to it. And, you know, I thought, oh, it's going to be a couple weeks. No big deal. I was at TX2K when they shut it down. And I'm like, what about all this money I was supposed to make?
Yeah.
You know, I think I drove home because the other event that I doubled down on, it rained out. So I didn't make any money. I barely got some money to announce. And I think we drove home, we probably had $1,000 to our name, you know, and made it through the whole thing.
Well, that's the stuff that people don't see. Like you kind of talked about the it must be nice attitude. Like people don't see that up and down roller coaster of like the extreme highs and the really big lows. And like, I mean, dude, like, I mean, I could tell you story after story of like everything that we went through to do this. And I mean, I know that any entrepreneur is going to have some version of the same thing, especially like when you and your wife did that, right? Like that was you, man, that's something to really be proud of. You know, it's really cool. But, yeah, so we kind of talked about the little bit of the Street Outlaw thing, but I guess you kind of went on tour per se with the Street Outlaw guys, like went to each event to sell hats and all that stuff. How did you get into doing that? Like into that franchise per se?
Well, at that time all you had to do was pay your money.
Yeah.
You know, there was you could buy your tickets to enter, and then at the very bottom of the page, you could buy your vendor ticket. And, I just was like, you know what? That was, to me at the time, the $1,000 that it cost for a vendor fee. I mean, that was pretty steep.
Yeah.
You know, not to mention having to get there because there was no NPK in Texas at the time and stuff like that. And
would that have been the first round of NPK per se?
No, that was season 2.
Okay.
So it's funny. People are like, you know, oh, you're this radio guy and everything else. I'm like, look, like I attribute No Prep to a lot of my like success and milestones and stuff like that. Like I judge, you know, I didn't even have my own branded tent until one of the Armageddons. You know, like my buddy Josh, who we'll have to talk about because I told him, hey, we're going to have to talk about it. But, you know, he hooked me up with a tent and one of the, I don't know, couple of Armageddons. I think there's been 7 of them I've announced.
Was that the dude that we were parked next to, Josh?
When?
At Armageddon this year?
No, he was not at Armageddon.
Okay. Gotcha.
But he does signs and stickers and stuff like that. Well, he was like, dude, I'll hook you up at cost. I'm like, oh my gosh. So here I am, like, you know, I barely have anything to my name, but ooh, look, I got Big Hat Mafia.
Yeah, look at that tent, baby.
Yeah, look at it. Or, you know, Big Hat Mafia as like a brand, you know, I did kind of sell hats and some stuff like that. But like my first event was an NPK. I went up and I was supposed to get, you know, back into the announcing position. You know, we had talked and like Bristol, I did the very first Bristol, you know, 100,000, which I guess was the initial NPK. And then they're like, hey, we're going to turn this into a show. We need you. And I was like, cool, like sign me up. Did the very first, you know, Memphis episode. And then me and, you know, the homies sort of made fun of it in the own sense of like just, you know, talking about like it was an absolute like shit show. But at the same time, like there was a ton of people that came to see it. Like it just was a shit show from the fact like anything that could happen happened.
Yeah.
Like we had the, you know, it's where the No Prep Wheel of Death came from. And the Chief and Sean show was on a Tuesday. And I had already had my like ticket and all that stuff booked for Bowling Green was the second event. And I get an email Wednesday morning, hey, we're going to go with a different announcer. All your stuff's been canceled.
Really?
And I was like, wow. So that, you know, to make a long story, you know, it sort of kind of devastated me, but it's whatever.
So you originally were going to do Booster's job per se.
Yeah.
Of what we know it.
Yeah. What is now Boost's job. And hey, props to my homie Boosted because, you know, he called me up and was like, hey dog, you know, how much vacation time you got? And I was like, I mean, like none? Like why? And he's like, well, you should come announce this deal, you know, the Bristol thing. And I was like, I'll be there. And it was, you know, a Tuesday. So I just flew out there. But it's kind of one of those things where we had talked and they had a couple other people, and then they eventually locked into a guy before Chris, and a bunch of the racers didn't really like the guy. Not from that they hated him, but just that, like, well, he's real professional. You know, he's just reading what is, you know, wrote down for him, and he's not a thing. Like, he's not part of it. And they're like, you know, we want to, like, get you back. We'll talk to the guy, you know, Sam, the guy. And that was the whole reason I went to Topeka. Was the very first, you know, NBK of season 2. Every dollar I had to my name, I went and bought hats, and I had it all together. And I probably, you know, another one of them deals, like Frankie Taylor style, had no money to get home. Like, I had one deal for it, and that was for this to work. And, you know, went up there, and the bus broke down, like, on the way in. Like, we stay overnight in a Walmart parking lot, me, my buddy, and Robert. And between, I don't know if you've ever been to Topeka before. Mm-mm. So from, like, this Walmart where you exit and then to the track is maybe 2 or 3 miles. I think the bus broke down 7 times in between there. And I'm just like, oh, my God. Oh, my God. I set up Friday, don't sell a single hat. And I'm, like, you know, bootlegging in between Scott Taylor and Mike Murillo. I told the guys at the gate, oh, this is, you know, Mike Murillo's motorhome and all this other stuff. And they're like, come on through, you know. I'm a little card table set up and stuff. And I, you know, never been one to have a panic attack, but I legit had a panic attack Friday night. Like, I'm too far gone. Like, you know, I don't know how I'm going to get home. I'm going to have to borrow some money from somebody. Tomorrow's supposed to be cloudy and overcast all day long and all this other stuff. And I wake up Saturday morning, it is absolutely not a cloud in the sky. And I sold every single hat I had that day. And it was funny because, like, you know, there was nobody there in the morning, but I went to go watch racing. And, like, the pits are here in Topeka. Like, the track is way far away. You know, it's probably like a 15-minute walk, like, if you go the way I went.
Yeah.
So I come back, and Scott Taylor's wife was like, oh, hey, I sold some hats for you while you were gone. And I was like, what? Like, people wanted to buy my shit? Like, hell yeah. And then next thing you know, I stack them on my head like you guys have seen, and was walking around and was slinging them. And I was like, this is it. You know, we got it going. And
I love that hustle about you, though, dude, to watch you, like, when you put them on your head and you're out there just, you're making it happen.
Yeah. So I'm riding that high, and I'm having a good time, and comes towards the end of it, and it's like, hey, you know, they did like a cast dinner. And like, hey, we're going to eat, and then we'll go talk to Sam. And I was like, you know what? I'm good, man. I don't want to do that. I want to be Big Hat Mafia. And, you know, the kind of look was like, okay, like, you know. Like,
so basically, to kind of wrap it all up in a bow, you felt like you lost the opportunity, then the opportunity came back, and you're like, I'm good. I'm going to do it on my own.
You know what? I think I had more fun doing this than I would out there.
We have a really similar story about kind of that. Like, when we raced NMCA, that was for a reason. So, and props to Mike Farmer for letting us borrow Bad Penny, all the things that we did that year. But we did it because we were under contract with a company that was trying to make a show with us.
Yeah.
So it was like us, Dave Fiskus, Martin Conley, and then there was a few other guys. But that was like our little crew of people that they followed around for a year. And it didn't work out the way that we wanted it to. Like, nobody picked it up. I don't know all the logistics of it. But then right after that, it was like when, like, me and Rick had been talking, and we're like, man, I think I would rather just do it on our own, right? Because you're right. Like, and it kind of all even comes back to corporate America, I think, is like, in this life, you have choices. And I've learned that, you know, even if it's not the most financially responsible choice, the choice that makes you happy, that you get to kick it with your homies and you get to do it the way that you want to do it.
Yeah.
That's the way better choice.
I mean, that's, you know, I'm sure there's some guy that's like selling some sort of, you know, be a millionaire with real estate investment or whatever. That's, you know, his mantra is like, there's no, you know, price you can put on freedom or whatever. But like, that dude ain't no bullshit. Like, there is no price from a tangible aspect, like the amount of money, but there is a price of stress and all this other stuff. But man, just the freedom of like doing what you want to do there's nothing like it. It's like the best drug ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree a lot.
Yeah.
This is a great conversation.
Yeah.
So that first MPK that you went to, or it wasn't even called MPK, it was just you get a call from Boosted, you go to Bristol, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna put on a drag race on a Tuesday night." Do you even know whose idea that was?
So I don't really know. Like, it's one of those legend has it.
Yeah.
Supposedly, there was like the idea of like Armageddon. There was a couple, on this, and they were like, "Well, let's film it. Like let's get it going and let's film this race and let's make it a traveling tour because, there's nothing better than anybody likes, and that's to make money and people watch. They watch the show, so they're like, hey, if we can sell tickets to this thing and we can get money at the gate." And then we can sell it to Discovery later on. We'll make twice the money. And like,
This is good business.
yeah, hell yeah. Like who wouldn't do that, right? And there's people that are like, oh, I hate Sam or whatever. And it's like, whatever. If you were in the same spot, you'd do the same thing too. And so I don't know what the exact deal was, but there was a idea of like, hey, let's make this happen. And they, I guess, originally wanted to do like, a Bristol-esque race, but they're like, let's try it. Let's throw $100,000, which everybody's like, that's a shit ton of cash. And, you go out there and I show up early because that was like the only flight that, they had that goes to, like, who goes to Bristol, on a Tuesday. And so I get out there and I've got my rental car and like, I'm already like feeling myself like, ooh, I'm hot shit.
Yeah,
like,
I'm flying in, baby.
They paying for my flight. They paying for a hotel, a rental car. The chick at the rental car deal was like, oh, you're in town for the race, and let me upgrade you. So I had like a Dodge Ram instead of like a little shit box, and I'm, on like cloud nine.
Fresh beard oil.
No, well, I think I had a goatee at the time. I get there and I'm like, talking to, it was, Farm Truck and Asian were there because they were getting their, booth set up and stuff. And we're talking to some people from the track, and I already knew like, this thing's going to be one of two ways. It's going to be either a ghost town or it's going to be the biggest thing to ever happen ever. And so, I've been to Armageddon where the second one, they're standing on top of porta potties watching this deal just to see these guys and gals like go down the track. And I'm like, this is probably going to be a big deal. So I'm talking to the track and I'm like, so like, what are you guys expecting? Oh, well, we have this, Bristol they have on the right-hand side is the only stands on that side. And the rest of it's carved into the mountain. But it'll hold, 2,000 people maybe. And like, oh, we're going to have these auxiliary stands here. And, that'll probably be it. And I was like, so, like, what if it's a big deal? And they're kind of like, I'm like, so y'all haven't considered that this could be a big thing at all. And they're like, well, I mean, we'll probably maybe have, like 5, like it's probably not going to be like, NHRA is our big deal. And I was like, okay. I think 2 hours before the gates were supposed to be open, they had opened the gates because the sheriff or highway, whatever it was, they were backed up on, like people were leaving their cars on the interstate and were walking to this thing, and it was $20 a carload and people from all over were coming to this thing. And there was just to see 32 people. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think really like, I know that the MPK thing does good everywhere, and I don't know the exact numbers, but it feels to me like this area is really the heart of that MPK fan, like that Kentucky, Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure someone out there will argue with me, but I feel like what made all that stuff popular was that these were regular ass dudes. Like these were, guys that had heating and air conditioning businesses or diesel mechanics or, did garage doors. Like these were just regular dudes that enjoyed street racing. And somebody was like, you know what, let's put a camera around this shit. They had their own Rick. Yeah. But like a bunch of them.
Bunch of Ricks.
Like that. It was
Ricks on top of Ricks.
Yeah, yeah. And it was Hollywooded and, they were at an airport, but it looked like the street and, stuff like that. But now all of a sudden, like, you can only watch that on TV. And now you get to pay $20 for you and all your boys to roll in and see, you know, Big Chief and, you know, Monza, like all these guys, hell yeah, that's going to be a huge event.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just one of those things where I feel like now we're so far disconnected from that type of deal. But that's how drag racing is. It always goes to the furthest limit. Your, you know, back half car at the time that made a lot of those guys popular, you know, you're going to get your shit pushed in by a small tire car.
Yeah.
This caliber these days. So you have no choice but to have these, you know, chassis cars and, you know, best of the best. And, you know, if you had a Hemi way back when, like, woo, boy.
Hey,
like,
you do it so.
You got a big block, like, sorry about your bad luck, bro. I got a Hemi in my small tire car, you know?
Yeah. That's true, man. What do you like that first event though? Just watching it happen and just seeing probably the chaotic looks on the people that were supposed to be like telling people where to go and stuff.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, they was understaffed, and that's, you know, it's whatever. But just to see like the crowd stayed there till the finals, and you know, it didn't matter who it was. Like, you know, there were crashes and almost crashes and small tire cars, and people were like, you know, have my baby, you know, and all this stuff. And, you know, they were like, you know, some hills have eyes stuff. Like, you scrape some stuff out of the mountain to come see, you know, a big thing in, you know, Bristol, Tennessee. And just like, you know, the lightning will never go back in the bottle. Like, I have a couple of highlights of my, you know, career, if you even call it that. And that's definitely up there. As far as like my no prepness, like that's to this day, that's the biggest thing I've ever been a part of was, you know, the first Bristol deal.
It's really cool that so you were at the first lights out and you know, not that radio racing wasn't a thing before lights out, but I tend to think that really was the big spark, right? And not that no prep wasn't a thing, because obviously they had Armageddon and all this stuff, but to be there at the first, you know, MPK, like what a cool thing, man, to see both of them kind of take off.
Yeah, I didn't, you know, to my credit, I never got like announcer under my name. I was just a guy like talking, and I guess, you know, I either have a draw or something. I just think I sound weird, but I remember there was a couple like, you know, closed caption deals or whatever, and I was like, yeah, sons of bitches. Like, you knew what I was saying, but you had to, you know, put it in closed caption. But it's just, I mean, I look back on it and like, man, I'm fortunate to do all the stuff I get to do, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that would, you know, love to have the problems that I have just to have, you know, just some, I guess, some accolades, if you even really call it that. Like, you know, for the NPK or no prep stuff, like that side, to me, the highlight of my deal was, you know, whenever Manny Bajinga won Pro and X 275. You know, Blake had just, you know, passed away, and that was the first big race after, and they had the banner and like the writings on the wall, you know, like it's going to happen. Bam, wins Pro 275. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, he's in the finals of X too. Like,
Yeah.
this could happen. But, man, he's like number 14 qualifier. And he got number 1 qualifier. And normally that's not Manny Bajinga's style, you know. And I'm always like, you know, a number 2 Manny Bajinga is deadly. A number 1 Manny Bajinga, he, you know, sometimes he goes out first round. Like, there's always, I've never seen number 14 Manny Bajinga before. And, you know, I'm getting up there and I'm like, what if he does it? Like, what if this happens? Goes out there and I can't remember who he's racing, whatever, knocks the tire off. And Bajinga knocks the tire off.
It was, it wasn't Rhodes. Was it White Rice? No, I don't remember. Go on.
Yeah, anyways, they both knocked the tire off. And I'm like, this could happen. And sure enough, Manny peels it up and goes like a 530. And I'm like, I want to be like, he fucking did it. I'm just like, you know, it takes every bit of my being not to cry. You know, I'm even getting choked up thinking about it, but not to cry saying this, but like he did it. You know, like he did it for Blake. You know,
that was a really cool, you know, I was still, we weren't there, but I was watching live feed and kind of same. There's really no better ending to a story than a pedal fest.
Oh yeah.
I mean, cause then you're like, because one guy might be out there.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And it's, you know, it's just one of those things. Like if you know, I think I even said, if you believe in like, I'm like, if you believe in this type of shit, you know, like that's, you know, divine intervention, you know, like it couldn't have happened any other way.
Yeah.
Had the other guy not started, you'd be like, man, there's some bullshit. Like, you throw in the race, they split, or as Tyrone would say, like, it's a setup. Funky Town, it's a setup. But no, it was a pedal fest, and just like he did it.
That's cool.
To be a part of that from the littlest aspect of just, speaking it into fruition. Because in the semifinals, I'm like, well, he already won in pro. Like, if he wins here, he has the chance to double up. And the only person that's ever doubled up before was, no one's ever doubled up. But like two cars.
Martin did before Manny.
I guess in limited and.
Yeah, but they didn't, because they said, I guess, because limited technically wasn't a pro class, is what they.
So there's an asterisk by it.
Yeah, that was my only gripe about that, honestly, was that Martin doubled up in 235 and 235 and DXP.
Yeah.
So then
with the nitrous car.
With the nitrous car. Yeah. And then when Manny did it, they said he was the first to double up because it was 2 pro classes. And I was like, he kind of did Martin a little dirty.
Well, much to our credit of our guy Martin there, he marched in the tower, and he's, you've said it before, he's an interesting individual. And he's in the tower arguing about a ladder. Because for the longest time, badass, they've got more than 32 cars now, but for a long time, I don't know how limited 235 survived as long as
I don't know.
There was 8 cars. There was 12 or something at this race.
Oh, I remember that. So
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was on the ladder.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a text about this. Like, damn right, you're putting him holding his feet to the fire.
So what was it? Oh, it's because Duck said, and I agree. I agree with this.
Yeah, number 1, number 2, racing the finals.
Yeah, they should never. So if you don't understand what we're talking about, when you start talking about pro ladders, depending on the way that the ladder is, so like there's some ladders, like a 12 car being one of them, that like 1 and 2 would race like the second or something, semis, yeah. So it wouldn't work out to where we would race in you would race in the finals. So Duck always said that 1 and 2
don't race to the finals. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, so they put us on I guess they put us on a 16 car ladder
with some buys.
With like dummy cars basically. Yeah. So
shout out to Wade Mooney out there, the CompuLink extraordinaire there, as he's in there like, number 32. He went 32 seconds. But he I remember sitting there announcing, and Martin's, in his, best voice or whatever, he's like, I just ain't right. And all of a sudden he goes, look, if you win, your ass better be right there saying, thanks, Duck. Thanks for doing it this way. And sure enough, he won. And I think he might have said thanks, but he definitely didn't come up to the tower and say thanks.
Well, he did. So I don't know.
No, it was when he got the check. He said thanks.
I don't know if how'd that go? Yeah, because that was a cool memory for me, man. Like I actually did a motivational Monday on this, but Martin, I wish one of us could do his the way he talks, because it's super hill. But that man needs subtitles. Yeah. But him and Cheese, he had wearing the cowboy hat. Martin goes up into the tower to get his money, and by this point, dude, it was like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Yeah,
we raced
that was
all night.
The one where it was raining Sunday. We had to finish it.
Yeah, that was what a cool memory, man.
But that's just like Martin's deal. Like you said, we had nothing. You didn't have the money to even go show up and race. That was the only ways to make it happen.
You had to win.
Yeah. Sidetrack, where we're talking about asterisks. It's from my homie Josh, but our boy Jimmy Dale was sitting in this seat a couple weeks ago. We was talking about, we're on a winning streak or whatever. But since you put on races, this would be a good question for you. How do you feel about buybacks?
Oh, no way.
Abso-fucking-lutely. No, this ain't bracket racing.
No, there's you can't. I honestly, this is an interesting topic. I'm glad we kind of go on Scotterbury. I don't even like second chance races.
You had enough chances to qualify.
Yeah, I'm out. So, even, and I'll be completely honest with you. This is an extreme example, but when we went to Armageddon and we lost first round, if there was a buyback race and we were 15 plus hours from home, we wouldn't have bought back in. Because we lost.
Yeah, you lost.
We lost.
So there's Wichita Falls. My guy, my Josh, my Mr. Profile signs himself, shows up, has a little street car. Where the same guy I was talking about that has, the suit with the horns and everything. We're running, like 560s.
Yeah.
He's racing Jimmy Dale. They in 2 different classes. They in Outlaw Street or Outlaw, I don't know, whatever it is. 2 different classes. One of them has 3 cars in it. My buddy Josh gets the bye to the finals, like right out of the gate. You know what I mean? They end up racing each other 3 times that night. Josh beats him twice. The one time Josh loses, he's asleep at the wheel in the final round. And that's where we're going to hang our hat on is we make the video about we won, blah, blah, blah. Like, bro, what about them 2 times you lost? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I go all the way to the finals and I ain't won or I ain't lost yet and you bought back in, you got to beat me twice, bro. Like, no, that ain't cool.
I was actually thinking about something like this. We got a race in October, and I haven't had a ton of time to think about racing promotion-wise. Right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about trying how to do something that was different. And I was thinking about, like, man, in the finals, those guys should, like, let's just say we pay, $12,000 to win.
Yeah.
Right? It's $12,000 to win. So divided by 3, that's $4,000. When you get to the finals, you have to race 3 times. Each time that you race is worth $4,000.
Damn. That's pretty good.
I'm like, man, that would kind of be fun.
So
Somebody might not like it as much as what I'm talking. I think it would be cool.
Well, and then too, like, you also want to have, like, it doesn't matter if you got 17 people in the stands, let's just get over with. But, that was the old, no prep thing was big tire had to race small tire for an extra pod at the
I
end.
remember when they used to do that.
And small tire got the back tire from the big tire car.
Yeah.
And, our boy old Boosted, he collected an extra bounty plenty of times on that deal. And speaking of, him, I think they had a race at Little River, this track called Little River in Texas, where everyone had a mulligan, the Musey mulligan, right? Had the mulligan chip. And you could use it even in the finals. And,
really?
Yeah. So, Chris loses first. I think he lost first round. And, let me cash this in right here, right? Cash it in. Ends up having to race the guy in the finals that he lost in first round, had to beat him twice, to win the whole thing. And so that's where I'm like, look, we should have to race twice.
I agree with that.
Like if you're going to do buybacks, everybody. But at the same time, too, man, that makes such a long night.
Oh,
absolutely no reason.
And really the only reason that they ever did it was to make more money, like with the bracket race stuff, because there ain't no spectators
and
there.
It's cool that you add to the pot, right? But I feel like, man, you should be double. Like it should cost you more money than your entry fee. Or, we have some different views on promotions in DFW. We have some different promoters, and there was another guy who, may or may not still be doing races. I don't know. But his deal is like you could buy back in, right? Because it made the pots bigger. But you could show up Saturday and buy back in. Like if you missed first round, you didn't have to be there Friday night. You could just show up Saturday. It was the same tech card money.
Oh, that doesn't make sense.
I'm like, what?
Yeah,
no.
That doesn't.
You're telling me that if I win first round and then I got to show up to a guy that just showed up Saturday and then I lose to that guy, I'm out. Like, what?
Yeah, that doesn't make no sense.
Now the second round's where it really counts? Like, get out of here.
So basically, we're just paying for a test pass.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, you might as well, everybody gets a test pass. You might as well, do that.
And that was the one thing that was interesting to me is like, so our no prep stuff on this side of the world, everyone's so like, it's off the trailer. Like, you don't make a lap. And then, like, when I seen the schedule for Armageddon, and it was like
Thursday night testing.
I'm like, what? So I like messaged them a couple times. I'm like, are you sure?
Now, they used to do it the 8th mile. Like, so the best part about, I think it was Armageddon 2 was the first time they did testing. They started at the 8th mile. So these people have been sitting out in the Oklahoma heat for hours because they wanted a spot. They've been sitting in these hot-ass grandstands and everything else. The first pair of cars shows up, and they're like, Jason, come on, Rick, like shit's happening. All right. And they go right past the water box all the way down to the 8th mile. And they're like, where they go?
It's dirty.
You just see all these people just like, where are you going? But it was to keep it, it was to keep it true of, like, hey, you're not going to get a shot at that surface, but if you need to shake your shit down, $300, bro. Like, oh, what do you want?
Yeah. That's funny.
But I mean, hell, like I don't blame them. Like when you come from, like no prep, it's cool, everything, because it does make money because you don't have any track expenses. We've like for our radio stuff, we have tens of thousands of dollars in track expenses. And so testing, hell yeah, $250 tech card for testing, go for it.
Yeah.
And you can do testing, and you're pretty much like offset all of your expenses that are coming up towards the end. Why not? Like, why would you not want to do that?
Well, and I think you that's a great topic to talk about because you're kind of on both sides of the coin. It's like that's the problem with radial racing is if you're gonna do a radial race, it has to be a big one, right? You got to really think it through. You just can't be, in no prep right now, dude. I think one of the major problems is there's just all these fly-by-night promoters. There's way too many races. Yeah, it's too much, man. So like, but the radial stuff, it costs so much to put on an event
that you don't have a lot of people doing it.
No, because it just takes more, and you got to be a little smarter, right? Because like you're saying, you have to, until we kind of started putting on events, I never really understood why like Duck made his deal so long, and now I'm like, I get it, like it's because you're paying for all this glue and stuff. You're trying to make as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, and I totally meant to text him, and I forgot now, but I think his way to know. But when you go to trophies, right? Like money spends. Whatever you guys want at MPK, like it's probably gone before the next Friday. What I mean?
It might have been. It's probably gone before we got there.
Yeah, like, we do belt buckles and whiskey sets and stuff like that. Duck does the Stetsons. And, like you have that whole deal full of Wallies. Pretty sure your dad's not going to get buried with a Wally, is he?
No.
So there was apparently a bracket racer, legend has it, was buried in his Stetson. Like that was, he'd won tens of thousands of dollars in all these Wallies, but, he won a Stetson for, I think, open comp. And that was the highlight of his career, and had it on in his casket, got buried with
That's cool, man.
And I'm like, as a promoter and me, like that's you can't get any higher than that. Like that's such an honor.
Well, and Duck does a incredible job with trophies. I mean, them thrones.
Yeah.
Were like.
Oh yeah.
Did you see the thrones, Rick? Dude, full on throne, like legit, like you get carried off in this deal, like
with a sash, slippers, and like a jewel. Which I mean, I'm sure they're not rubies or nothing like that, but you never know. Like a full on crown. Like you a bad motherfucker if you won Battle of the Thrones.
It's tight.
It is tight, dude. Like
tight.
Could have been sitting right up there in that front office, just somewhere to sit.
Yeah, and I'm sure Big Dick Mick thought going 221 and winning the first Sweet 16 that's like $101,000 or whatever. Like that was pretty cool, but he ain't got a throne.
No, that briefcase is. I mean, unless he kept empty. The briefcase full of money.
Yeah, it probably says for motion picture use only in it now. In the office, but bet your ass, Shane Stack riding around in Huntsville, Alabama, in the throne.
Yeah, maybe in the back of a pickup truck.
Yeah, probably so. But I mean, that's just it kills me whenever like people want to. Oh, we're doing this, or we're doing that. I'm like, man, just stay in your lane, do your thing. Put on what you want to put on. If you want to do a no prep, cool. Start working with somebody. Start doing something. But to just all of a sudden be like, oh man, we can get some cars. Like it took us like for Doomsday Productions is the name of our deal that I'm sure if I never said that, my wife would kill me. But we were 15 races in before we really started getting a handle on it.
Yeah, it takes a while, man.
Our Gene, the guy that I didn't even know he was getting paid. And all of a sudden, Michael's like, hey, man, I got some money. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, like it was a really good event. And then we made, the only one we ever lost on, I think we maybe lost $200 altogether. But the track had to stay there till like 2 o'clock in the morning to replace a whole bunch of, pilings and stuff that got beat up. But like, you can't be in it for the money, man. You can't, we call ourselves part-time promoters. We're part-time.
Yeah.
We got Big Hat Mafia. My buddy, he's got the, RV repair and whatever, like we're part time. We had another guy
RV repair has to be good. I mean, them deals are breaking all the time.
Yeah, well, it's funny that we talked about the other day. Like, used to be it's a leisure thing, right? And now people are like legit living in these things, and they're not meant to be lived in.
No, they're not meant for a lot.
No, they're barely meant to get from A to B, not just stay at point A. But we had another guy who, touted himself as a full-time promoter and like, that worked out for you, player. But you can't be in it for the money. You got to be in it for the passion. You got it. Like, we're morons for putting on a radio race. If we want to be in it for the money, no prep 24/7 every single weekend.
Yeah.
But we have a passion for radio racing. He has a, small tire Nova, the one that, Tom was talking about, that won Little Hitters, right? It's a limited 275 car, or Ultra Street, runs for, I think it's been a 68 or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Still pretty getting it for a little I think it's a 588 now, but, obviously he's going to want a place to race, so let's put on a race where he can get some money. And we want to see the homies that we have to go all, like, there's so many, the thing is there's so many names on that, not the ladder, but the qualifying sheet, blah, blah, blah. Texas. There's so many Texas, but you got to go all the way to Georgia to race? Like, bro.
Yeah.
And so
Texas is a big state too.
Yeah. I mean, when you and Tom was talking about, I love Kentucky or whatever, like, what does Kentucky have besides the Kentucky top hat?
We got Kentucky bourbon.
Okay. Give me a couple more.
KFC.
Yeah, KFC. That's a classic there, boys.
But what I was just, trying to make a joke, like, dog, I got a Texas crock. You know what I mean? Like, Texas toast, Texas truck month. Like, we got Texas,
I mean, you got a lot of Texas, bro, but we're giving you with the chicken, baby.
Yeah,
I mean, we got the chicken.
Have you ever, I'm sure being from Kentucky, have you ever been to Corbin, Kentucky?
I have, but I've also been all around the world, and there's KFCs everywhere. I don't know if there's a Texas Roadhouse anywhere else.
There's Texas Roadhouse at least. I don't know if there's any overseas, but
that's what I'm saying, dude. If we made some sort of spreadsheet of Kentucky and Texas, it'd be a pretty decent spreadsheet.
Hey, look, I won't lie. I had the one time we had KFC when we were over in Germany. It was pretty terrible.
No,
but it wasn't KFC's fault.
Hey, dude, you know what the deal with the fun is? The KFC buffet.
Yes.
That's a golden ticket. It's hard to find now.
Are there any around?
Oh, there's one about 30 minutes away from here.
Yeah.
Dude, I am down. Let's go. I'll take back half the bad things I said about Kentucky.
Dude, the buffet is where it's at.
Yeah, my stomach.
That might be for dinner.
Yeah. Did you guys have Grandy's up here? I like how we went from racing every time I got my second favorite deal. Besides small tire, it's food.
I don't know what Grandy's is.
It's like a KFC. It's like home cooking, but dude, they got a buffet. Little chicken fried, like those deals at Ducks, the VIP tent.
Yeah.
Little chicken fried steaks for breakfast.
Those are good, dude.
Oh, yeah.
My dad, every time he went with us, he'd eat about 15 of them dudes.
It's not a Kentucky thing, but have you had Skyline yet? Skyline chili?
You talking about chili with ketchup and
Oh
pasta?
yeah, Texas. That's offensive. I forgot.
But I
chili.
like beans in my chili, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
you can get chili. You can get a four-way with beans.
Yeah, you can get beans.
Yeah, but the Skyline's the one with the pasta in it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you can get it, but you already get it on a coney.
And it's like sweet chili with cinnamon and it's delicious.
Martin Conley calls it hot dog sauce.
I got you. Whichever camera's supposed to look at, I got you. 'Cause that sounds like some bullshit.
That's funny. Well, in closing,
I like how that's
That's the
closing. Food, chili sauce.
So where can people find you at? Like, how do we buy Big Hat Mafia stuff?
You literally enter Big Hat Mafia into anything. But you can go bighatmafia.com.
Yeah.
Is my official website. But people are like all the time, like, you got a business card? I'm like, no, dog, there's only one big
I had a dude ask me today for a business card. I'm like, man, we're still doing this?
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's going to cost, a nickel or something to get a whole bunch done. But like, why do I need to give you a business card? Like, stand right here in front of my booth and order the shit I ain't got.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure you got it next week. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
But yeah, Big Hat Mafia, that's where it's at.
Yeah, and they are the best big hats. They're huge, and they really, when you're out, I mean,
they make great gifts too. Like I think I owe you one because you gave one away, and I don't know if that's a official, like business statement or whatever for myself. But like, man, if you donate a hat to somebody, I feel obliged to just give you one. You know what I mean?
Nah, man, she definitely needed it more than I did. So yeah, because they are, dude. They're great when you're out. out there. You know, Rick wears one when he's
I was going to say
filming.
they're great for filmers.
Yeah.
Standing in one spot, not getting cooked.
Yeah, they're great. And the man behind it, even greater.
I'm just a regular guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you're like, I'm looking at your patch.
Like
I'm
physically, it's hey, at least I can sell that to a guy with a red beard. I'm like, look, dog, you can tell everybody else that's you. Like, you ain't got to tell it somebody else.
That's funny. Well, man, what a great conversation. I'm sure we'll continue it off camera. But so.
Hey, I mean, if you've made it this far, I'm sorry for, wasting probably an hour of y'all's lives, but, it's whatever.
Yeah,
we joked, and I said this will be the least. You have to leave this
was
in.
an awesome. This was an
No,
awesome.
I had a great time. Yeah, we had a great time.
Great.
We'll have you back too.
Wow.
So
100%.
he just happened to be the way that all this happened was he was coming from LS Fest, and we were texting a bit, and I'm like, well, just you can post up at the shop. He's got an event at Edgewater this weekend, Streetcar Takeover. So, and I think that's obviously how a lot of our podcasts to go, to just be like, hey, I'm going to be there for a few days.
Yeah, you want to come check out some Big Hat Mafia. See me and the kid, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, good.
But hey, thanks for taking the time and, thinking that I'm interesting, even though I'm not.
You're super interesting. I mean, enough.
Awesome stories.
Yeah, really great. Look how Rick's super entertaining.
Rick's like, yes.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
But all right, guys. Well, we appreciate you for watching, hanging out with us. As always, like, share, subscribe. Make sure you check out my boy Barrett, and we'll see you later.